The fluorescent lights of the dojang hummed a monotonous, sterile tune, a stark contrast to the frantic drumming of my heart against my ribs. My face was pressed into the cool, unforgiving vinyl of the training mat, the scent of sweat and industrial cleaner filling my nostrils. Every muscle in my body screamed in protest, a symphony of pain conducted by the 135 pounds of focused fury that was Master Alara, pinning me to the ground with a technique that felt less like martial arts and more like a geological event. Her knee was a wedge of pressure against my hip, her hand a steel vise around my wrist, twisted at an angle that promised a future of arthritis. I had no air, no leverage, and no hope. Then, her voice, calm and crisp as a winter morning, cut through the roaring in my ears. "Do you want me to get off now?" The question was a lifeline, a golden ticket to freedom. All I had to do was croak out a yes, and the agony would cease. I could stand up, brush myself off, and retreat to the safety of the bench, my pride only slightly more bruised than my ribs. But the answer that bubbled up from the depths of my defeated soul was a ragged, defiant whisper. "No." I said it again, forcing the word past the strain in my throat. "No, Master Alara. I can take more." This wasn't a story of a natural athlete. This was the story of a man, Leo, who had stumbled into this pristine, mirror-walled dojang 2 years ago, a ghost of a person haunted by a life he couldn't seem to escape. My waking hours were spent in a gray cubicle, crunching numbers for a corporation that saw me as a replaceable cog. My nights were a blur of takeout containers and the flickering blue light of a television, a hollow attempt to fill a void that had been growing since my divorce. The divorce that had stripped away my best friend, my home, and my sense of self. I wasn't living, I was just occupying space, waiting for the day I would finally just dissolve. I started Krav Maga not out of a desire for fitness, but out of a desperate, primal need to feel something other than the numb, aching emptiness that had become my constant companion. I wanted to feel pain that was physical, tangible, and mine. I was a disaster. My footwork was clumsy, my punches had all the force of a damp sponge, and my stamina was a joke. I was the student everyone partnered with for an easy win, the one who always ended up on the mat, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he even bothered. But I kept coming back. I was drawn to the discipline, the structure, the simple, clear objective of each drill. It was the only thing in my life that made sense, the only place where I knew what was expected of me. And Master Alara, with her quiet intensity and unyielding standards, became the focal point of my fragile new world. She wasn't just teaching me to fight, she was teaching me to stand my ground. Her challenge to me was not just physical, it was a battle for my own spirit. The "no" I had gasped out on the mat was a turning point. It was the moment I stopped fighting the pain and started fighting for myself. The next few months were a blur of brutal training sessions. While my body screamed in protest, my mind began to quiet. The nagging self-doubt, the relentless replay of past failures, the crushing weight of loneliness, they were silenced by the simple, total focus required to perform a perfect chokehold escape or a precise elbow strike. I was still getting my ass kicked, but I was getting my ass kicked less frequently. My sparring partners started to grunt with effort when they faced me. I was no longer a pushover. I was becoming a challenge. The more I learned to defend myself, the more I felt a sense of control creeping back into my life. The gray walls of my cubicle weren't so confining, I held my head a little higher. I started cooking again, simple meals that filled my apartment with warm, good smells. I even started a short, terrifying, and ultimately rewarding conversation with the neighbor who shared my hallway. These were small victories, but they were mine. Each time I broke free from a hold or landed a clean strike in the dojang, it felt like I was breaking a chain that had been binding me to my past. The person who had walked into the dojang 2 years ago was a ghost. The person I was becoming was a fighter. Then came the seminar. A renowned grandmaster was coming to our city, and only the most dedicated students were invited. My name was on the list. A wave of nervous energy, a cocktail of pride and abject terror, washed over me. The day of the seminar, the dojang was packed with black belts, their movements fluid and confident. I was easily the most inexperienced person in the room. The Grandmaster was awe-inspiring, his techniques almost mystical in their efficiency. He moved like water, effortlessly redirecting the force of students twice his size. The final drill of the day was designed to test the breaking point of our will. A true warrior's spirit is forged in the fire of exhaustion, the Grandmaster boomed. We were to pair up and perform a grueling series of holds, designed to be inescapable. You will not tap out, he commanded. You will not ask for reprieve. Your partner will not release you. The only thing that ends this drill is your ability to withstand it. My partner was Master Alara. A cold dread trickled down my spine. This was not a drill, this was an execution. She took me down with a fluid, inescapable sweep, and suddenly I was back where I had started all those months ago. Pinned. Defeated. Her weight on my chest, my arm trapped, the lights above too bright. The pressure was immense, a relentless force that stole my breath and clouded my vision. My body screamed for it to end. It was so much easier to just give up. To let the darkness take over, to sink back into the familiar, comfortable numbness. To be the ghost again. But then, echoing across the chasm of my despair, I heard her voice, quiet, for my ears only. Do you remember your answer, Leo? The memory hit me like a lightning bolt. The first time she had asked me that question, I was a broken man in need of fixing. Now, I was a man who had forged himself in this very fire. This was different. This was the final test. The pressure was immense, the pain a blinding, white-hot fire in my shoulder. But the "no" that came out of my throat wasn't a whisper of weakness this time. It was a roar of defiance. A declaration of who I had become. Every ounce of my being was focused on a single, impossible thought: I will not break. The seconds stretched into an eternity. I felt the darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision, saw the pitying glances from the black belts watching. I was on the verge of passing out. And then, slowly, the weight began to ease. I felt the pressure on my arm loosen, the steel grip on my wrist relax. I heard the Grandmaster's voice, filled with a rare warmth. Enough. This one has proven his heart. Master Alara helped me to my feet. The room was spinning, a deep, bone-weary ache coursing through my limbs. But I was standing. I was upright. The other students, those I had once seen as untouchable gods, were looking at me with something akin to respect. As the dojang emptied, Master Alara stood beside me, her gaze meeting mine. The intensity was gone, replaced by a softness I had never seen before. You stayed, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You stayed when it would have been so easy to leave. And then, she leaned in and kissed me. A soft, gentle, and completely unexpected kiss. When she pulled back, her eyes were shimmering. We went for a walk after that. The cold night air was a welcome relief, clearing my head and soothing my aching body. We talked for hours, not about Krav Maga, but about life. She told me about her own battles, the loneliness of dedicating your life to a discipline that most people see as a hobby, the sacrifices she'd made. She told me she saw a kindred spirit in me on the very first day, a man whose fire was not out, but buried. We walked until our feet ached, pausing under a street lamp near my apartment. The glow cast a soft halo around her, and in that moment, she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Her hand reached out, her fingers brushing my cheek, her gaze searching my eyes. The story of my life, of pain and survival, had brought me to this moment of profound connection. If you're finding inspiration or a spark of hope in Leo's journey, please don't forget to show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to the Kindness Corner Second Chances. Share a story of a time you refused to give up. Your comment could be the light someone else needs to keep fighting. She leaned in and kissed me again, and this time, I kissed her back with everything I had. It was more than just a kiss, it was a promise. A promise of a new beginning. That night, I didn't go home to my empty apartment. I went home to a new life. Sitting here now, my arm around Master Ilera, the woman who had pinned me down and forced me to find my own strength, I realized that the question, "Do you want me to get off now?" was never really about the mat. It was a question about life. It was an invitation to surrender or to fight. I chose to fight. And because I did, I didn't just learn to fight an opponent. I learned to fight for myself. I found my heart, and I found my home, right there on the mat. Master Ilera was right. The journey is just beginning. Do you have a moment in your life where you had to say no to giving up? A moment where you found a strength you didn't know you had? Please, take a moment to leave a comment below. Let me know if this story touched your heart. If it did, please share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for watching, and from the bottom of my heart, never stop fighting for the person you deserve to become.